And so you want to collect uranium, but you're not sure how to do it. Is it safe? What do you need to do? How's it done? Well, maybe I can help you a little bit. This is Tom from anti-proton.com. Let's start off with what you need. Step 1, get a book. I happen to recommend this one by Robert Lauf, PhD. It's a introductory guide to radioactive minerals. But you don't have to use a book like that. You can get a general mineralogy book. That's a pretty good Peterson's Field Guide right there. These sorts of books cover all of the various things that you're likely to see and help you figure out what it is that you're collecting. Now, next up on the list, and these I would think are some of the basic things you would need, you should have a UV light, such as this little guy right here. There's another kind right here. Now, if you're curious where to get UV lights, you can buy them from many places. I have a list on the video of places where you can get some. You can even go to pet stores and get them from the pet urine cleaning kits. That's actually where both of these two came from. Isn't that kind of funny? You just go to the pet urine kit and buy it, and you get a free bottle. You get a free bottle. You pay like 30 bucks for it, but you get a bottle of pet cleaner, and you get one of these little guys to go with it. I just usually give the pet cleaner away. But you can buy much nicer lights if you want to. You should buy some sample containers. Here's a cheap one. You can buy expensive ones. Little vials like this are very useful. This one's glass. I would suggest buying something to look at. I don't care if you're 18 years old. No matter how good your eyes are, it's still nice to look with something that zooms in. I would suggest getting some glue or adhesive to stick the materials down to the actual containers you're going to put them on. I recommend getting rubber gloves. And I'll explain that under the safety part of the video, which I'll get to in a few minutes, because safety is very important with uranium. And you might even go so far as to get some lead shielding. For example, this is aluminum foil that has lead inside of it. And I'll put down a place where you can get some lead shielding. But most importantly, probably the most important tool you need when you're getting uranium is you need a Geiger counter, such as this guy right here, because otherwise you don't know what is uranium and what isn't. Alright, so let's start off. First step in our road to discovery is, where do we get uranium? Where do you purchase it? Well, there's two ways to get uranium. You can literally go out in the middle of the forest and look for pieces of rock specimens like this. You can test them with your Geiger counter and determine whether or not they have uranium in them. Now you might say, how do I know they have uranium in them? Well, if they're radioactive and you can identify them in this book, then you're probably good to go. If you can't identify them, like if you have a piece like this that's radioactive but you can't figure out why, then you pretty much know that there's probably only one of three things in it. Thorium and its decay progeny, that's its daughters, uranium and its decay progeny and its daughters, or potassium, that's radioactive potassium. Or you could have any combination of the three. It's better when you can actually figure out what it is, because part of the joy of mineralogy is actually figuring out what it is that you have. But even if you can't, that's always one thing you can do. You could also, if you're like me and very lazy, you can go on the internet and actually buy samples. But let me warn you about something. When you buy samples off the internet, depending on where you buy them, you may not know how strong they are. And you can get a beautiful sample that could be so ridiculously radioactive that it just, well, let's just say it may not be as safe as you'd like. So you should probably make sure you go to reputable sites to buy your uranium samples, at least ones that show you a rough estimate of what the actual activity of the sample is. So let me show you a couple interesting places that you can get. Well, I'll show you one interesting place, because I only have express copyright permission to show one place. So let me show it to you. This, by the way, is the place where I get all of my uranium anyway, so it is consequently a good thing. Here we go. Alright, so we've decided to go get some uranium initially. Maybe we're going to go get some later on in our backyard with a pickaxe, maybe we're not, but right now we want to go buy some. Now, there are a lot of websites out there to get it off of, eBay, Amazon, so on, United Nuclear. But the reason I'm showing you Mineralogical Research Company is twofold. Number one, because this is where I get my best samples. I'm talking like my really good, like museum quality looking samples. And so I wanted to kind of show them off. And number two, because I have express written permission from the owner to do this, meaning I don't have to deal with all that fair use stuff. As you all know, I hate to put anything copyright on my videos, because fair use is such a pain. So this isn't fair use. This is express permission. Yay. That's much better than fair use. That means I don't have to worry about anything as long as I don't do anything stupid. So anyway, let me show you the site. That's Minresco.com, Minresco.com. There's a lot of other places that I'm going to list, by the way, too. I'm not trying to do like a commercial for the. I mean, I guess it's sort of it becomes that, doesn't it? But that's not my goal. I'm just showing it to you. So I wanted to show you some of the other ones, but I don't have express permission. So there you go. Anyway, so I buy a lot of the fluorescent minerals from these guys, but I also buy their radioactive minerals. Let's click on them. You get what you pay for, and you get really good stuff from these guys. Anyhow, they show you for each sample that exists the count rate from a CDV 700, civil defense Geiger counter, those yellow ones, at about a 1-inch distance. And that's going to be a lot lower than something like a pancake probe, like an inspector, but still gives you a frame of reference. And of course, millirentgens per hour from the probe. And by the way, they do this with the window open, if that's of any interest to anybody, on the Geiger counter. And I find the rates that they put, the dose rates, to be much higher than they actually turn out to be. So that's good, because you don't want to get something that's too radioactive. They're accurate for their unit, by the way, too. Their unit's based off of a cesium-137 calibration. That would be why. But they have the other information, and they have some good stuff here. I won't spend too long, because like I said, I'm not trying to make a commercial or anything. I wanted to point out a couple of good specimens that are worthy of buying. First off, metatorbonite is just absolutely ludicrously beautiful. Ludicrously beautiful. Hey, what's going on with my really good internet connection? There we go. Look at that. Oh my God. This guy right here, I've thought about buying this a couple times. I just drool looking at it. Isn't that just absolutely just ridiculously beautiful? One of the benefits of buying from a site like this is it's very hard to go out in the natural world and find something like this. So it's neat to have a good piece in your collection. And it's fun to go but go get some too. So just go literally find some out in the wild. So I like to do both. I'm going to be going to Ruggles Mine pretty soon to actually find some. And here's some of that Gunite. God, I can't pronounce that worth anything. And I'm pretty good at pronouncing stuff. And they have a couple pages worth of. Here's that book. You can buy it here and a couple other places too. I can't remember where I bought it. I think I might have gotten it off the United Nuclear, the book. You can buy it here. You can buy it on Amazon, a dozen other places. Great book. They have good samples though. Yay, good samples. Look at that. That's the sample I bought. They took a better picture of it than I did. See, that's that glow-in-the-dark sample that I have. Well, you'll see it in a minute. I actually haven't shown it to you. Well, I'll show it to you in a second. I actually bought this very piece right here just a little while ago, so it's in my collection. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And keep in mind that some of the stuff like this shucking right may look kind of ugly when you look at it. But if you look at it up close in a black light, it shines back beautiful colors at you. Okay? So just to give you an idea, this is a good place to buy stuff. I'll have a few more places listed. And one more time, keep in mind that if you buy from someplace like eBay, then you may get a beautiful sample that could be absolutely gorgeous and great in all ways. But when you buy from a professional mineral collecting company, you get what you pay for. And you're going to get something that's going to look the way you want it to look and be absolutely lovely, like this guy right here. So anyway, enough flaunting this site before I look too much like a commercial. Let's look at some specimens. All right, so we've gone out and we've seen samples, and now we're going to either buy some or we're going to go off into the wilderness somewhere with a pickaxe and get some good samples, right? One or the other. And let's look at some samples now and see what we have. These are some of my better samples from my collection. We're going to start off with some United Nuclear samples, and we're going to finish off with some Mineral Research Company samples. Now, the United Nuclear samples are they're just not beautiful the way the Mineral Research samples are. The Mineral Research samples are more like museum quality. The United Nuclear stuff is kind of like bulk uranium, but it's a lot cheaper. So, you get what you pay for. Not that there's anything wrong with United Nuclear stuff. Let me show you. The first piece up here is kind of a gumite. Now, my autofocus is kind of odd in this camera. I've got to put this up against the screen to get it to focus, and then pull it back. And you can actually see it pretty well up close. See the yellow and the brown? That's pretty much gumite. It's kind of a hodgepodge of various things. And as you can see, not really terribly radioactive. I'm not even going to go all the way to full scale on it. It's a couple thousand counts per minute, no more than that. Specifically 8,000 counts per minute, and it's a 66 gram specimen. And it has an actual dose rate of about 1.2 microsieverts per hour. By the way, my dose rates are being calculated by this Polymaster, which actually has a cesium iodide detector in it and will tell me the actual dose rate. So there you go. Let me put that aside. Let's move this guy out of the way. The next up sample is again from United Nuclear. Luckily, I already tested all of these ahead of time, so I don't actually have to show you this. This is a beautiful sample. It has some carnotite in it, and you pull up my reference card. It has some Unite in it. I can never pronounce that correctly. It's Teyuyamunite. Teyuyamunite. Okay, who comes up with a name like that? Okay, I know what it's based off of. I know the name, but really, people, who comes up with a name like that? We'll call it the T-Rock. How's that? All right. So let me get my back camera back where I can see it. Let me zoom up here and let you see what it looks like up close. You see there's kind of like blotches of yellow and blotches of blue in it, sort of. Camera has pretty good zoom on it, doesn't it? Pretty good focus. Anyhow, that's a nice little sample, and I'm going to move my Geiger counter probe over here because I'm using my other hand anyway. If I were to let this go all the way, it would reach 23,000 counts per minute at 5 microsieverts per hour, 180 grams. So that's 180 grams. Not bad. Not bad. Up next, this small vial. Now these little vials are nice because they contain tiny little samples. Let me put this up here where you can see. Oops. There's a piece sitting right in there that has carnotite on it. And you can open these up and actually pull out nice pieces because I've looked through some of these and found some great stuff. Like, for example, this little piece of shiny, what is this called? Pitchblende, I believe. I think that's pitchblende. This stuff really gets the Geiger counter going. Even though it's so tiny, just because it's so potent. But anyway, now let's switch to the Mineral Research Company stuff. Alright, from the Mineral Research samples, first up on the list is Teyuyamunite. Oh, good God, I can't say this one. Here's the card for it. Here, you can look at it and say it. Alright, and I'm pretty good with endoplasmic reticuli, Golgi apparatuses, electroencephalographic audiometry, and other big words like that. Okay, but you're killing me with this guy right here. This is a terrible word. Anyway, there's the card for it. And this is the sample. Come on. Autofocus. There it goes. It's kind of a yellow color. That's the real stuff. Focus. Focus. I'm nursing my focuser along a little. Well, anyway, my focus is not going to work for the sample, so let's put it down, and I'll show you an up-close and personal view of it. It's actually a potent sample. And I'm going to go so far as to put a little piece of cloth over this to make it less loud. Yeah, I have a piece of paper towel here for the use of sticking underneath stuff to make it hold up. To give you an idea, this piece is 3.5 grams. It has a 1.85 microsieverts per hour at 1 inch is its dose rate, and it gets 28,000 counts per minute of beta and gamma, and it gets 50,000 counts per minute of alpha, beta, gamma altogether. So it's one of my hotter samples. Absolutely beautiful. So here's a picture of it. Okay, so let's put that away. This little card with it. Next up on the list is a fluorescent mineral. This is Schwackingite from Hideout Mine. And here's its little card. Yay, Schwackingite. This is another potent little sample. It's 19.10 grams, and I actually don't have the information written down for this one, which is kind of odd. I have it for pretty much every other card that I have, or every other sample that I have. But regardless of that fact, we can just see right now what it has for specs. It looks like it's going to probably be around 8,000 or 9,000 counts per minute. Okay, I'm really wrong. 26,000. Wow, so much for ballparking it, right? Okay, 26,000 plus or minus. We'd normally do a longer test, but we're just doing a simple short one. Not bad on the alpha, on the gamma and beta. 12,500, 13,000. Well, anyway, the dose rate's probably not too high in this guy. Whoops. You can't see it very well, so I'm going to show you an up close picture of it. There we go. This kind of looks like a lumpy rock like you might find in your front yard. So here's some pictures of it up close and personal, including some blacklight ones. And I want to warn you, for all my blacklight specimens, it's hard to get a good view of them on this camera. It doesn't pick up blacklight very well, but here it is. All right. So let's put away Schwackingite, which is a beautiful sample. Next up, here's a really good one. This is called Boltwoodite. You're going to see this guy. This is crazy. Take a look at this. This is its little card. And that is Gunite's claim and Arendis. So, okay, really, come on. What's with these Namibian names? Swakopmund District, Orongo Region, Namibia. Okay, for any Namibians out there, I'm sorry that I just butchered this. Apparently I'm having an interesting day with complex words. Either that or people that name uranium give them goofy names. But anyway, so let's flip it over and see what we get right here. It looks like I wrote down that this has a half a microsievert per hour, and as a dose rate. The inspector had 6,100 counts per minute with alpha and with beta gamma, and alpha beta gamma was looks like I mixed that up. Alpha beta gamma was 6,100 counts per minute, and beta gamma was only 3,600 counts per minute. Anyway, enough of this card. Let's look at this thing. This is a fragile but beautiful sample. Look carefully at the crystals. Those are all crystals. Oops, I'm touching with my hand. I'm supposed to be like not doing that. It looks like the teeth of a monster. Rawr, rawr, monster. It's a uranium monster. Uranium monster. Well, anyway, this isn't great. So let me show you a nice video, a nice photo of it up close. Okay, so as you can see, that's a beautiful sample. Not too hot. By the way, I'm not giving this thing enough time to actually go to full scale. You're just kind of hearing the dose rate. All right, let's look at 3 more, and then we should be done. This is meta-autunite. Meta-autunite, as you can see, here's its little card. This is from Ruggles Mine, New Hampshire. Meta-autunite, I believe, means it sucked up a bunch of water. I'll be actually going to this mine very soon with some equipment to do some uranium mining myself. The dose rate in this guy is pretty low at just barely 0.45 microsieverts per hour. Its max count rate is 6,800 counts per minute. That's with alpha. 3,100 with just gamma beta. This stuff glows like crazy under blacklight. You probably can't see it in this light, so let me show you what it looks like. Well, let me kind of pick it up and show you. Then I'll show you what it looks like with my better photos I've taken. See, it's kind of a clunky thing. Here's a better picture of it. Alrighty, this stuff's pretty amazing. So I have some meta-autunite somewhere from no, actually not meta. I just have regular autunite from Spokane, Washington, Washington, the Daybreak mine, but not around me right this moment. So, oh well. Next up on the list, there's only 2 more pieces. Here is Urano-Circite. This is one of my favorite specimens. This one is so beautiful under blacklight. I'm not going to be able to do it justice with the photo I'll show you. I'll show you a photo. I will not be able to do it justice. With the human eye, which is so much more sensitive, you would not believe what this thing looks like. It's just absolutely, oh, you wouldn't believe. Anyway, here's this little card. This one is from Germany. Deutschland. Deutschland. It's from uranium. Oh, not uranium. It's uranium from Deutschland. But anyway, very low count rate, very low dose rate at 0.2 microsieverts per hour. That's not bad at all. And the inspector at a half-inch distance for alpha, beta, and gamma gave it 9,000 counts per minute, and for beta and gamma only, it gave it 3,700 counts per minute. So this is actually a pretty low dose rate specimen, which is good. I like low dose rate specimens, though I'm not, a radiophobe. I don't think I should just expose myself for no particular reason. So I'm happy with the low dose rate. So let's see if you can see it. See those beautiful yellow crystals? That's really the uranium right there. It's uranyl phosphate. I believe it's uranyl phosphate. All right, so let's look at this up close. All right. Guten Tag. All right, so now for my absolute pride and joy specimen. This is my favorite specimen of all. This is metaturbinite, and it normally has a little safety seal thing over top of it to keep the water and moisture and stuff out of it, because we don't really want it to be destroyed. This is a just ridiculously beautiful piece. You probably remember some from the website where I showed you a minute ago. God, if you could just see the crystals in this thing. There's crystals. They actually stick up as crystals. Here's its little card. It's from Congo, Zaire. Congo is a great place to go as long as you're really heavily armed, as far as I've heard. I may be wrong, and maybe they fixed everything up. I swear they're having like all kinds of civil wars there last time I read about it. It's pretty hot. Let's cut the sound off on that. This is one of the hotter pieces that I have. And it's going to be. I've noticed that the more beautiful the uranium sample is, the hotter it gets. Terrible the way that works, huh? At nearly touching it, 42,000 counts per minute. Not bad. Not bad at all. All right. So these are, well, let me show you what it looks like up close. All right, so let's talk now a little bit about radiation safety, because that's really, really important. All right, next up here, we have uranophane, one of my favorites. Here's the card for it to start with. Card in focus. Thank you. All right, so there we go. Interesting stuff. It's from Colorado. Boltwoodite and some other stuff. Really, really neat though. Uranophane is the primary. And let's look and see what's in it. There's all kinds of other random stuff in it. 5.36 grams, 1.4 microsieverts per hour. My inspector here is going to say that for gamma, alpha, and beta, it's 45,000 counts per minute. For gamma and beta only, it's going to be 22,000. Let's see that. My finger over that. Oops. Yeah. That seems about right. Okay. Let's take a look at it up close. This one's actually a pretty fragile piece. Let's get the autofocus to work. Autofocus. There we go. Kind of an interesting rock. Very fragile. Anyway, let's actually take an up-close picture of this guy. Oh, look at that. By the way, just for giggles, notice that distance is useful. Anyway, so here's an up close. All right, so moving on to the next one. All right, so uranium is both chemically dangerous as a heavy metal. So forgetting the radiation for a moment, it is chemically dangerous. If you could take all the radiation away from it, it is still deadly to your body as a chemical. And I believe it builds up in your kidneys. I'll have to double check on that. Of course, I should point out with a disclaimer to start with that I am not a professional of nuclear physics, nor am I a doctor, nor am I any other sort of person who should say what is and isn't safe, other than things that are obviously and reasonably well known and intrinsically non-safe. For example, I believe that drinking gasoline would be unsafe. Right? I don't need to be a doctor to say that. That kind of falls under the duh principle. So I would go so far as to say uranium is not necessarily the safest thing in the entire world. You shouldn't sleep with it in your room. You should not put your collection of uranium under your bed. Apparently that happens. That's a bad place. You shouldn't seal the containers up anywhere and let radon gas build up inside, because it will build up, and then open them up and let the radon out. Don't breathe in the dust. Don't ingest the dust. If you touch it with your hands, wash them. Even if you use gloves, wash them. You cannot wash your hands too much when touching uranium. Clean up your area where you work with. Treat it as though it were lead. See this lead right here? Treat it like it were lead. Treat it like it were kind of a powdery, oxidized, not too safe lead. If you do that, you'll be pretty much in good shape. I mean, if you read most books that are written by professionals, for example, the introductory guide to uranium here, and I'm kind of like fair use show this. Where does he say it? Word on safe handling here. He has an entire section where he talks about it, and you have to buy the book to know. So sorry if I show it to you. I don't think that really. I show you all the words. I don't think that's fair use anymore. But he will explain in the book what he considers to be safe, which is pretty much what I just said. But anyhow, external exposure to radiation, which is what everybody worries about, is not terribly dangerous for these low-level samples because the dose rates are so low. If I took one of these and glued it to my chest and slept with it for like 8 hours, I'd get like a chest x-ray or two. So, I mean, you wouldn't want to do that. But from a distance, radiation is not so bad. And if you have shielding, like we have some lead here shielding it, that really helps as well. The three things to keep in mind are shielding, time, and distance. The farther you get away from a sample, the less radioactivity. The more shielding, the less radioactivity, and the time, the less total dose. So let me kind of show that to you. Let's cut the sound on. This is shielding. 1 inch of lead. Does a pretty good job, doesn't it? Now, what happens if we put a thinner supply of lead in between? Still does a good job of cutting it down. Not as good, but pretty good. So lead is a good idea. You don't need much, but a couple millimeters of lead, maybe even an inch, is a good idea. Next up, distance. See, distance worked like shielding, didn't it? Because there's a finite number of particles of radiation shooting off of this, and as you get away from them, they have to fill a greater and greater area of space, and so less and less of it's concentrated in any particular area. And there's natural radiation around you all the time, so it's not as though just being exposed to this in itself is intrinsically more harmful than background nature. It's just that high intensity amounts of it can be a problem. Consider it like lead exposure. We all take in a little bit of lead every year, but if you take in lots more lead, then your risk goes up. Less lead, your risk goes down. There's always intrinsic risk with taking in lead. So think of it similarly to that. Sort of like sun exposure. The tiniest bit of sun exposure you get will raise your chance of skin cancer. Little tiny bit of sun exposure, little tiny risk. Lots of it, lots of risk. It sort of works that way too. And of course, time. For example, you switch this to a timer function, and let's cut this off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give us 10 seconds versus 5 seconds. Okay, ready? 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, 4 1000, 5 1000. We got 600 counts per minute in 5 seconds. Let's go back again. 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, 4 1000, 5 1000, 6 1000, 7 1000, 8 1000, 9 1000, 10 1000. Okay, that wasn't a perfect experiment by any means, but even accounting for just a little bit of error in what I was doing, you see that just being near it for longer gives you a greater dose rate. The point being is don't be around something for too long. Limit your exposure and buy some shielding. I think you can safely keep small samples, like for example, this metalhonite, inside of a house. I would not put them anywhere near where there are children, pets, or even you. Put them in a room you don't go into very often. Put them in a basement. Put them, it's already radon down there anyway. Put them in a garage. Put them someplace like that. Make sure to keep them safe too. For example, don't put them in places where they're exposed to too much moisture. In fact, seal them up if you can. But the downside of sealing them up is they will build up radon. And to get rid of the radon, which you want to do, and what I did with my United Nuclear samples, because I keep them inside of plastic bags like this, and I keep them outside, and I keep them inside of a lead-lined container. When I opened this bag up, I funneled air into it for about a minute or so to make sure there was no buildup of radon. And the bag itself will become radioactive inside over time because it will pick up some of the daughter progeny that come off of the actual sample. So just keep that in mind. Nice containers like this are useful. And the containers like this have a benefit. They actually, or glass ones are even better, they actually block some of the radiation themselves. It turns out virtually anything will stop an alpha particle, and some stuff will stop beta particles. It's important when you stop the radiation also not to stop it too fast. Lead is nice, but I would use something like plastic around the sample, thick plastic, half-inch plastic, quarter-inch plastic before the lead to slow down the betas as they come out, because if they hit the lead, they'll stop really, really fast, and if they stop really fast, it'll cause them to emit X-rays. See? Just putting the plastic in front dropped down the dose a little bit. Impressive, huh? Not as hard as you might think to stop. You can't do much about the X-rays, though. But as long as they stay on the outside of your body, they're not as bad. The problem is ingestion and inhalation. Inhalation's the worst. So, make sure that you don't breathe any of this stuff in. Alright, folks. This has been Tom from anti-proton.com. Remember, always consult with a professional if you have any actual questions. I am not a professional myself, just a collector of uranium. I think uranium is absolutely beautiful, and I'm glad you took a moment to watch this video, even though it was probably a little long. And let me know if you have any questions. I am just a lay person and an amateur collector, but I'll try to answer you if I can. And thank you very much.